CM Punk reunites with Dax Harwood in a photo posted to social media. Kenny Omega is called out by a top AAA star teasing a match inside of an AEW ring. Saraya, is she going to turn heel in the future? There might have been plans for her to turn heel in her initial AEW debut. Bobby Fish opens up on his AEW exit. MJF responds to fans who say he should wrestle more on AEW television. And Max Caster explains why the Acclaimed are not the New Age Outlaws. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about a reunion between CM Punk and FTR, a team that certainly was actually meant to be featured way more on AEW television throughout the summer if CM Punk hadn't got injured and then suspended. So an interesting reunion nevertheless. CM Punk may be the persona non grata in All Elite Wrestling right now, but that does not mean he's not friends with anyone in the company. Dax Harwood has expressed his opinion of CM Punk previously and how it changed over their time in AEW together, saying, quote, he always had his door open, invited people in, watched matches of the young wrestlers that asked him to, stuck around until the end of the show, and anyone that had questions, he would answer the questions. He loves wrestling. Now, recently, the two caught up and shared a moment on their respective Instagram stories, which caught the attention of users on Reddit. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler recently competed in a bloodbath of a match against the Briscoes, which saw FTR lose the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships in a double dog collar match. Now, it's not the first time, of course, that we've seen FTR or Dax Harwood and CM Punk all hanging out. They are good friends, and I think it's important to note that there are, as much as the narrative's been put out there that everyone in AEW hates CM Punk, and yeah, they definitely agree with what the Elite was saying, and there have been the majority of the locker room has said, if CM Punk comes back, I'm not going to work with him, Chris Jericho, and he's got no place in AEW. I don't think that's necessarily totally the case. To Dax Harwood's points, and it's something that I've tried to, and I think it's really careful when you cover this CM Punk, the Elite AEW story, and that is obviously that there are two sides to it, and people, because it's 2022, have to pick sides. You can't be in the middle, and things have to be black or white. There aren't shades of grey, and I do think in this story there are shades of grey. I think that CM Punk's behaviour after All Out was not up to par. That was unacceptable. What he did, I mean, even if there wasn't a brawl, which there was, but even if the brawl hadn't happened, his behavior in that post-show press conference was bang out of order for the biggest star in the company, for a star that at the time was the AEW World Champion, in front of the assembled press, and the world was watching, and the first comments you have are running down, co-workers, EVPs, the company as a whole. That's not, a behavior befitting of a talent, and that was wrong. And the brawl, if you want to talk about how CM Punk may have thrown the first punch, that's not acceptable too. Now, at the same time, is it acceptable for the Elite to barge into a dressing room? It is not. At the same time, did they actually barge into the dressing room, or did they knock on the door and they brought their legal representation with them in Mega Parek, the chief legal officer of AEW? All of that went on, so we don't know the full stories, but all of the above, it wasn't good behavior. Now, I don't think it's fair to put the entirety of the blame all on CM Punk in that instant, because I don't think that's fair. I think that the Elite's behavior through all of it was not acceptable either. I think Hangman Page is someone that's actually really managed to escape a lot of this because he wasn't involved in the brawl. But Hangman Page's behavior, was that acceptable when he was the AEW World Champion? No, it wasn't either. If you're going to say something in a promo that's, insensitive and it's not cleared by the other person, that's not acceptable either. If you want to say that Hangman Page went into business for himself, that's not, tolerable. But at the same time, CM Punk responding to that by calling out Hangman Page in his hometown, where he knew Hangman Page wasn't going to come out because it's not in the script, that's not right either. And, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And I think that everyone involved in this whole fiasco, and it's this year in pro wrestling, as we're nearing towards the end of 2022, it's one of, if not the most wild, news story-filled years in pro wrestling that I can ever remember, from WWE and AEW in its short history. And I think, in retrospect, looking back on the entire brawl-out incident, I don't think anyone can hold their heads high and say that they managed that appropriately. CM Punk can't, the Elite can't, Hangman Page can't, most of all Tony Khan can't, which is easy to say, because ultimately I think there are so many different flashpoints throughout the year, throughout sort of a 12-month period, that led to what happened at All Out. And at every single instance, Tony Khan, I think, could have prevented what ultimately happened. I think if Tony Khan had stepped in and had managed his company, heaven forbid, that's what you have to do. If Tony Khan would have managed his company and managed that dynamic between his top stars and between his EVPs, all of this could have been avoided. Now, CM Punk wouldn't be on television at the moment because he's injured anyway. And we don't know the latest when it comes to Punk's status in the company. We don't know if he's still suspended. We don't know if, like the Elite, he's come back from that suspension and it's just a case of he's injured, so he's on the sidelines. We don't know. We don't know if we'll ever see CM Punk inside of an AEW ring again. I think the general sentiment is no, but at the same time, there is a feeling that it still could happen. Anything is possible. Again, this year has taught us that anything is possible in the world of pro wrestling, so I wouldn't rule out CM Punk ever wrestling again for AEW. As far as, well, why hasn't he been released right now? Clearly, AEW doesn't want to release him whilst he's injured. They don't want to have any potential legal recourse on the side of Punk. By all accounts, CM Punk wants to leave. He wants to be done. And if you believe certain reports, he'd be open to returning to WWE. And if you believe other reports, and we are going to do a video about this in the future actually, WWE might be open to CM Punk returning, which is very interesting too. And I think AEW is aware of that. The last we'd heard is that AEW and CM Punk were actively negotiating an exit. Punk wanted to go, but he didn't want a non-compete clause, and AEW did. I think a bit similar to the one of William Regal, whereby he got a release negotiated, an exit negotiated, but he couldn't be an on-screen talent for WWE. Now, would they want something similar with CM Punk? Would they say, okay, we're going to negotiate your exit, but you can't wrestle for the competition? CM Punk doesn't want that, and look, whilst he's under contract, the longer he remains under contract with AEW, anything's possible for a return. And as I've said before, some of the Elite's references that they've done to Punk on AEW television since their return has been just so heavy-handed that part of me goes, yeah, you know what? There might be something in it. And as I've said before, I could see a situation whereby the Elite win this best of 7 series, and then their next feud is with the House of Black. So their feud is with the House of Black, and that leads to, say, Revolution, maybe just a little bit after. And after that, that's when we're heading into the spring. And by that point, there is a feeling that's when CM Punk could return. Now, when he got injured at All Out, that was, of course, early September, they said 9 months for a torn tricep. So we're looking at, by that point, you'd say June, maybe he'd be back. So maybe the spring's a little bit early, but I suppose he could come back and not wrestle until June. That's possible too. So I think the biggest positive for Punk, really, of this instant when it happened is that he did get hurt. And because he got hurt, there is still a lot of time for him and AEW to play around with. And they could, in that time, things could cool over. And to an extent, they kind of have. Not a lot, but they're far cooler than they were, when the incident first happened. And give an extra 6 months, who knows what the situation will be in AEW. And if AEW gets desperate as well for ratings, what happens if Warner Bros. Discovery say, well, we want Punk back? And the TV deal kind of hinges on you having CM Punk. Maybe that's a possibility too. There are so many different outcomes, and that's my point here, that to rule out CM Punk ever wrestling again in AEW, I think is just a bit too much. So whilst the story here is just CM Punk reunited with Dax Harwood, and there's nothing more to it than that, just to give a bit of an update on the situation with Punk, I think anything's possible. That's what I'll say. Now, another big match that people may want to see in AEW involves the AAA star facing off against Kenny Omega, and that's AAA Mega Campeon El Hijo del Vikingo, and he's commented on a possible match between himself and AEW's Kenny Omega. Now, Omega is the longest reigning AAA Mega Champion of all time, holding the gold for 765 days between October 2019 and November of 2021. Now, Omega technically actually didn't even lose the AAA Mega Championship. He was forced to relinquish the gold as he was undergoing multiple surgeries that he needed months to recover from. Hijo del Vikingo won the vacant gold in a 5-way bout at Triple Mania Regia 2. My pronunciation is brilliant, by the way. Terrible. That December. Now that Kenny Omega has returned to the ring, it's been speculated that Omega will challenge Vikingo for the title that he never lost. Speaking with Denise Salcedo of Instinct Culture, Vikingo pointed out that he now can wrestle in the United States, teasing that he might show up in AEW to confront Omega. The PWI 500 number 8 wrestler of 2022 said, quote, "The third time's the charm. It's now been 2 occasions that Kenny Omega and I were going to wrestle, but for this and that, it wasn't able to happen. But now I have the visa. So if he doesn't want to come to Mexico, then I will go look for him. Expect some big surprises. Why not have El Gran Gente go and look for him in his own house? Anything can happen. My home, AAA, is always giving surprises. I don't know. Maybe in the future, I will go to his house, or him and ours, or somewhere in the middle. Anything can happen." Now, it was rumoured that the duo were set to face off on the October 15 Triple Mania event. Conan previously revealed that Omega was pulled from the event due to legal issues. Those issues most likely stemmed from the fallout of Brawlout, involving that brawl between the Elite and CM Punk and Ace Steel. Omega is currently teaming with the Young Bucks to battle the AEW Trios champions Pac, Penta, El Zero Miedo, and Rey Fenix in a best-of-7 series. The former AEW World Champion will return to New Japan Pro Wrestling to challenge Will Ospreay for the IWGP US Championship at Wrestle Kingdom 17 on January 4, 2023. So it's a match I think that both have wanted to do for a while. It's a match that AAA certainly have wanted to do for a while, and I think that Tony Khan would also want it to happen inside of an AEW ring. So I think it's really, really likely that Vikingo and Kenny Omega face off in 2023. I think probably a couple of times, probably most definitely in AAA, that will happen. I mean, the story makes sense, doesn't it? You've got Omega, who never lost the championship, and you've got the current champion. So that one writes itself. And I recall Conan even saying, recently in interviews and on his podcast, he said, well, obviously originally we wanted to have Omega do the match in October. It couldn't because of those legal issues, but we even wanted Omega just to send a vignette, just a pre-tape to set up that match some point down the line. And Omega told Conan, I can't even do that. I can't do anything whilst I'm suspended. So clearly it's something that AAA want to do and they have plans to do. So we're going to see Kenny Omega versus El Hijo del Vikingo at some point. I think the question will just be, can AEW also get it done inside of an AEW ring? And he's been very clear that he wants to wrestle. He now can wrestle in the United States. So keep an eye out for the new year, basically, because that match is definitely going to happen at some point. Saraya has opened up on her previous plans, I suppose, in AEW, and also what the plans could be going forward. Now, of course, she made her comeback, her pro wrestling return after forced retirement at November's Full Gear pay-per-view in a one-on-one match against Britt Baker. But the build-up and dynamic of the match could have been much different if Saraya had her way. She said in a recent interview, quote, "I remember saying I would be the heel to Britt, honestly, but she had a point. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of baby faces. There are a lot of heels in the company," she told Pro Wrestling Bits. "Even though Jamie is a heel, she is a babyface. Let's be real. I mean, people love her. If I faced her, I would definitely be the heel, or even Willow. You know what I mean?" Saraya admits she just naturally feels more comfortable portraying a heel character regardless of where she's signed. "Even in WWE, I felt more comfortable when I was doing more heelish work. I felt better, and you don't take things as personal when you're a heel too. You're like, what? I'm the bad guy." So she even then teased, saying, quote, "I would love to be a heel if I'm honest. I have so many different ideas being a heel, and I always say to people it's so much easier being a heel than a babyface because it's hard, especially in today's world, to get people to straight out like you out of the gate. So I'm actually going to start from scratch again, but being a heel, it's so easy to get people to hate you." Now, she also spoke about, interestingly, what the WWE locker room felt about AEW, and it's quite interesting. She said, quote, "When I was backstage in WWE, I didn't see people talking shit about AEW," Saraya said. "People were just happy there's another place for people to go, because when people would let go and be let go in WWE, we'd be devastated for people. You know what I mean? It'd be like someone just died or something like that. Now we're like, wow, you have an opportunity in AEW now. We get happy for people that have a place that they can go that's just as big and just as Goliath, just as gigantic, you know, such a big platform." Now, when she says that, that's not necessarily true. AEW is not as big a platform as WWE, but her point remains that it's another place to go that is big, that's on cable television, that does decent numbers every week, and you can earn a similar amount, or even more in some cases, than you can in WWE. So I think that for all of this, and it's funny, isn't it? Because that just goes to show that the tribalism that you see on social media, it's not driven by wrestlers. Yes, you might have people come out and talk smack, but the only reason they do that is because it gets a reaction from people on social media and people in the crowd. The real tribal people are the fans. That's the difference because at a drop of a hat tomorrow, the majority of the AEW roster would go to WWE and vice versa if they had to. Make no mistake about that. So people can get on Twitter and they can get on Facebook and they can get on, people at places like this on YouTube and say what they want. Oh, you hate AEW or you hate WWE or I hate this program. Anyone that likes this program's idiots. The talent don't think that. They don't. It's driven by your own brain, your own mind, and it's weird, honestly. Now, as far as her being a heel, I think her being a heel would be much more suited. I think she should play up that she's an outsider coming into this company. And at this point, as I said, Jamie Hayter is going to be turned into a babyface. I have no doubt about that. Britt Baker at some point will be a babyface, even though it's going to be her turning on Jamie Hayter soon. So I think Saraya would do good stuff as a heel in AEW. I have no doubts about that, and I think eventually she will turn heel. Bobby Fish was in AEW for a short second, and then he went, and the Undisputed Elite just disappeared, with Kyle O'Reilly being on the shelf, Adam Cole also being on the shelf, and now Bobby Fish no longer being with the company. In September 2022, it was revealed that Bobby Fish's contract with AEW had expired and was not being renewed. At the time, the veteran competitor had been off TV since August of 2022, after he, Adam Cole, and Kyle O'Reilly turned on the Young Bucks and ended the Undisputed Elite faction. This inactivity was due to various injuries sustained by Fish's partners, but many assumed he would just stick around until their return so he could resume the feud with the Elite. However, this has not come to pass as discussions over a new deal fell apart when the two sides failed to agree financially. Now, the former Undisputed Era member has elaborated on his AEW departure. While speaking to the Wrestling Perspective podcast, Fish shared that the previous reports about money were accurate, but there were other factors in play as well. Following his WWE release, various things with his family came up, including buying a house and planning a wedding. When the AEW contract arose, he jumped on the security, although Fish felt he wasn't in a great headspace and ensured that the contract was only for a year in the hopes he could prove his worth and earn more money on the next deal. But in the end, the multi-time tag team champion said, quote, "We just didn't see things the same way." Since then, he's appeared on Impact Wrestling and made his boxing debut while appearing on various independent wrestling shows. But once Cole and O'Reilly are healthy again, maybe there's an AEW comeback in the future. I kind of doubt that. He said a lot of stuff since his AEW exit, and it's weird, isn't it? Because clearly they wanted to do AEW, in an ideal world, if everyone was healthy, the plan they wanted to have was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. That's what they wanted to do. And for various reasons, they couldn't, obviously. Again, Bobby Fish left the company. Adam Cole got hurt. Kyle O'Reilly underwent neck fusion surgery, so he's out of action. He might never come back. And the same with Adam Cole's concussion. It's a really bad one. He might never come back. So without them two, Bobby Fish is just kind of redundant. And that was the situation. And then when the Bucks and Omega came back anyway, then they got suspended. So it just didn't work out. Timing didn't work out, and it is what it is, essentially. MJF has hit back at people who said, you should wrestle more. And he's given a reason as to why he doesn't want to wrestle more in a recent interview with Sports Illustrated, saying, quote, "Wrestling fans get upset with me for not wrestling more. I hear, MJF, you should wrestle more. F you wrestle, it hurts. I'm not an effing mark loser like Bryan Danielson, where I'm feigning to get in the ring every week because I'm a wrestling hipster nerd. You know what I care about? Making the most amount of money I can in the shortest amount of time possible and maintaining my mental and physical health. Rather, MJF has built his name for himself as one of the best talkers in the business, often cutting critically acclaimed promos and dipping out of harm's way when other wrestlers come after him. Quote, I'm not going to go out and kill my body for people who are fickle, MJF said, taking a shot at AEW's fans. 1 second you're beloved, the next you are hated. That shows you how fickle, disgusting, and putrid mark wrestling fans are. 1 second you think MJF is the best thing since sliced bread. The next, you want someone to get the belt off me as soon as possible. And they don't even realize it. It sickens me. MJF's reign of terror continues unabated, with the world champion defeating Ricky Starks Wednesday night on Dynamite. And that's exactly what happened. And I think one of the best things about MJF is that he doesn't wrestle that often. Why? It keeps his matches special. Who would have thought it? Finally, there's been some comparisons recently between the Acclaimed and the New Age Outlaws, that being, of course, that Billy Gunn's tag team, and maybe that's because Billy Gunn is the manager. Whilst on Busted Open Radio, Max Caster of the Acclaimed addressed the comparisons between the Acclaimed and the New Age Outlaws, saying, quote, "We call ourselves the New Legends. We're not the New Age Outlaws," Caster said. "We are the new legends in wrestling because of what we've been able to accomplish just this year and once we won the titles," I told Anthony. "If we have a full year of just focused energy on getting this to be the most popular popular thing in wrestling and the loser popular thing in the world were set for life. And that's exactly what happened. And I hate the whole, they're the new this, they're the new that. They're the Acclaimed. They're different than anyone else, and they're over. And they're the tag team champions. And they're one of the most popular acts in AEW right now. They're printing money. They're selling merchandise. They're getting some of the biggest reactions on the show. They don't need to be compared to anything else. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.